and France with a renewed agenda on space, whether it be at the European level, because the European Union launched its new Space Act in June 2025, and France also launched a new space strategy for 2040 in November 2025, and is and will also soon host a space summit in France at the end of this year. So there's a lot of ambitions on both sides, and I think it's interesting to mention it because here in Taipei, and from the perspective of the French office, space is also an important issue of cooperation between France and Taiwan. It is a priority of our scientific dialogue, and my colleagues from the scientific section know it well because there's a very long-standing and ambitious scientific cooperation in this topic, but it's also a topic of economic cooperation. And for example, as you might know, Taiwan's space communications and services work with a European company, Eutelsat OneWeb, which is mostly French and British, but has also other shareholders. So, in a nutshell, that's a lot of interesting topics to discuss tonight. I think very topical issues, and I'm very happy to have tonight three experts from France and from Taiwan to discuss this. So the first one is Dr. Xavier Pasco, which is the director of the FRS, Fondation pour la recherche stratégique, one of the main leading think tank on defense and security issues in France. Dr. Pasco is the director since 2016, if I'm not wrong, and is also a specialist of space, but also security, and I think high technology. Forget any, but I will also let you continue if it's necessary. And we also have two experts from Taiwan, so thanks a lot also Mr. Fang, Director of the Office for International Cooperation at the Taiwan Space Agency, at TASA, as well as Cathy Fang, who is a policy analyst at DSET, so Democracy, Society and Emerging Technology think tank in Taiwan. And he's, and you're, Cathy, also a specialist on national security issues, especially critical technology domains, as well as telecommunication technologies. So thanks a lot to the three of you for being here tonight, and I will directly let my colleague Clémence continue the conversation, kick off the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier, for your introduction words. So for those who do not know me, I'm Clémence, a science officer at the French office in Taipei, and I will be moderating tonight's discussions. So, as Jérôme said, the French office in Taipei is very happy to welcome the three of you, excellent researchers on space. We will not go again into details because Jérôme did very well, but we will tonight explore the space as a territory of geopolitical rivalry, competition, the actors of space, the transformation that happened recently, the space ecosystem, and we'll also put that in the context of the Taiwanese ecosystem and see what are the challenges, what's TASA's policy, and what are the communication resilience issues around space in Taiwan. So first of all, we will start with the three presentations, and then I will ask questions to our speakers, and we will finish with the Q&A, so if you can start thinking about questions during the presentation. You're welcome. So we'll start with the first presentation with Xavier Pasco.
So first of all, thanks to French office in Taipei. Very happy with my co-speakers. Well, space is large, as you know, and what I would like to do, maybe as an introductory presentation, is give you a view of what it means today, 2026, how we should look, where we should look, what are the main challenges I see from Europe, and I will try to finish with a European perspective. Okay. So first things first, what we see for a few years, for almost a decade now, is a very big evolution of space as a domain. And two things, there's a lot of technologies rapidly evolving. Also, the associated uses of this technology, and due to the digitalization, the heavy digitalization of this domain, is transforming the space activity for some years. It's been almost changing the way societies have been projecting themselves, both in the literal sense, but also more figurative meaning in space. We don't project ourselves the same way we used to do it 15 years ago. We want to inhabit space. We want to use space not only as a medium you would like to access. We want to use this medium almost on an industrial basis. At least this is what we see in the US. This is what we see in China. This is what we're thinking about in Europe. We're not sure about how we can balance all this. So you have new types of projects. You have also, and this is maybe more important, new types of players. And this is also the new thing. The space community used to be historically very, very well defined engineers, scientists, and very close to themselves in a sense. What we see today is the emergence of players in the information technology domain coming into space to make money and to benefit from public investment, putting their own money and trying to make space something that will benefit to their own business. So that's very new, and this is a transformative factor. And so it means for the space industry to adapt, and it has become a major concern for the space industry, the traditional one. Whether you're talking about the manufacturing sector, launchers, satellite manufacturing sector, the service and the application sector as well, what we call the downstream activity. Whether we're talking about telecommunications, by the way, we're not talking about telecommunication satellites anymore so much today. We're talking about connectivity satellites, which in itself is a significant semantic change, but also the digitization, which is very, very important. And it's particularly acute in Europe. We have to transform, we have to adapt. And a major overhaul in the European space sector has begun. It's on its way, it's not easy. I will give a few words about that afterwards. Okay, this is a PDF version. That's it. It's not we have three domains today that are very active in the space domain. What we call the LEO domain. LEO is low Earth orbit. It's for all the satellites you're hearing about, the Starlinks, for example. You must realize that today we have in space something like 15,000 active satellites. Out of these 15,000 active satellites, 11,000 belong to Elon Musk. They are Starlink satellites. This is an unprecedented situation. So this is about connectivity. It's of course about Earth observation. It's of course about other kind of activities, but massively, this is connectivity satellites. These are connectivity satellites. The second domain that today gather a lot of public money. It would have been expected so much 10 years ago, but it's been the case in the US. This is the human exploration domain. And it's been mentioned by Jerome. I think the Artemis program, which is this return to the moon program in the US, but also the Chinese program. As you know, there is this ISPR program that is underway in China. And there is some sort of competition here that has built up over the years with the exact same date or tentative date for our first coming back to the moon. This is very important because it is mobilizing a lot of public investment, and then it is mobilizing a lot of private investment as well. See in which conditions. And the third domain is the military domain. And this is also, space has always been militarized. But this time, there is a new thing that, we used to use space for what it brings when you monitor the Earth, when you communicate, but you were not doing so many things in space. Today, this has changed. As space has taken a prominent role in the defense system, space satellites may have become targets. And then you will have to protect this target. You see some already sort of attempts to target satellite. And then you have space-to-space operations that are thought about in the main spacefaring countries, in the US, in China, and even in France. In 2019, we have published a space defense strategy, which in fact talks about the notion of active defense in space, which means that you will have new systems, new operations in space, and so for the military, space is a new theater. And we can read that. We see how we could curb this evolution, or at least keep it under control. So, associated with these three domains, you have three key concepts. The first one is that you see the emergence of a logistics-based vision. People are thinking in space in terms of logistics. You want to be able to maneuver. You want to be able to store, manage the energy. You want to be able to be smart in space and use edge computing, AI stuff. You want to put a lot of systems in space. You want to industrialize space. And when you do that, you're thinking in terms of logistics. It's not by chance that Amazon is investing in space. It's not by chance that all these guys in the private sector are thinking in terms of logistics. This is true for the LEO. When you have 11,000 satellites in space, you have to manage them. You have to coordinate them. You have to make sure that the end of life of these satellites does not create problems. You have to manage the end of life disposal. So you will have to have support programs. You will have to have programs that teach you how to do it. So you have to know how to do logistics in space. So this is the first thing. The second thing in the exploration, you also have this logistic approach. Artemis, or even the Chinese program, are about going back to the moon, but for installing there, for bringing equipment, for bringing, devising facilities that will host crews over the long term, etc., etc. Which means that you will need energy, you will need recycling, you will need autonomous systems, etc. In one word, you will need logistics. But as far as the military is concerned, they want to be resistant, they want to be resilient, they want to capitalize on these constellations of thousands of satellites. So they want to be able to maneuver, they want to be able to resupply, they want to be able to do a lot of things that they were not even envisioning to do almost 10 years ago. This is a completely new look. So they also have the same need for the self-systems. That's very important because from an industrial perspective, it means that if you want to make money, you just identify the logistic-oriented technologies and you will invest in them. And then if you invest in that, you have three types of customers. Mostly governmental. But this will be where you will have also a large injection of public money. So that's very important because this is shaping the way space is getting oriented. Once you've said that, you're thinking about logistics, so you're talking about industrialization and standardization. And what we see in space right now is, I would say, the standards war. We're talking about norms, we're talking about standards at any stage. This is true for the LEO. For the LEO, we need to get coordinated between satellites. So we have a concept that's called space traffic management. It has to be an international concept where governments, agencies, industrial players get agreed to avoid collisions. To have some sort of a road code of conduct, if you like. That's very true for the LEO, where we're lacking such an instrument, and this is posing problems. Basically, when you have at an altitude, you have several thousands or tens of thousands of satellites. If you launch one satellite at this same altitude, you will have trouble. So we need to have a governance regarding this. We need to standardize orbital operations. I told you that we have a logistical approach, so we will resupply, we will, it's called RPOs, rendezvous and proximity operations. Some satellites will get closer to other satellites. We need some standards here. And there is also collective interference management. The more we communicate, the more we using the spectrum, frequency spectrum, radio frequency spectrum, the more we must get coordinated. I can tell you that any organization that was created, has been created for these decades, has never envisioned such a development. So it needs to be renewed, and it's really key. So it's key for LEO. It's key for exploration. In the Artemis program, for example, for the cooperative countries, in fact, you have something like more than 63 countries which have signed what we call the Artemis Accord, which is an agreement which is accompanying Artemis program. We're talking about interoperability. So interoperability means norms, industrial norms, technical norms, etc. And for the military, it's the same issue, because they're depending more and more. They will depend more and more on the commercial LEO, for example, LEO constellations. So indirectly, there's norms, and the type of functioning that will be finally adopted will have an impact on the defense uses. So that's very important also. And then last part of it, all this bring about policy and legal issues. In LEO, we're starting to discuss about the collective management of orbits. You know, if one player is just there, another player is there. You know, the orbit doesn't belong to it for this reason. But in practice, it's going to be difficult to coexist. So how do we settle this problem? This is what we call the private monopolies. What we see mainly are monopolies, you know, winning in space. This is something that could be, it's not guess yet, but it's something to be in our mind. For the exploration, we have the example of the Artemis Accords, as I told you already. For example, we're talking about safety zones on the moon. What are safety zones? In fact, these are zones where some countries would say, you don't go there before you have my authorization. In fact, it's not. This is illegal if we compare that to the existing space treaty today, dated 1967. And this only one legal instrument. There's a notion of non-appropriation. But if you're talking about safety zones, you know, it's like if you agree a small territory or something. But it's recognized that, okay, it's a pragmatic kind of approach, and all these countries who signed the accord realize that it's not completely contrary to the spirit of the 1967 treaty, but still it's in discussion. And of course, the military domain is also affected, and there's a lot of collective policy and legal issues here. In particular, of course, we are talking about collective security in space. It's more and more difficult, in fact, due to the number of attacks, the sheer number of attacks, to determine what is the cause of a problem. Is it an attack? Is it an accident? And if it's an attack, can you attribute this to the author? And if you attribute this, what would be the policy consequences? So more and more, the military people are thinking in terms of TCBM, as we say, transparency and confidence building measure. It's never been applied to space, but it feels like, because this is a medium, an environment in which we will inhabit more and more, we need that, like we need it in other domains, proliferation, beside proliferation domain or other domains. So how to create a transparency and confidence building measure in space? It means that you need to create a platform, and you need to exchange data. You need to be transparent enough. And of course, for the military, being transparent is not exactly what they're used to, but they have to do it, certainly, because there's an interdependent relationship here. And if you destroy a satellite in orbit, anybody will pay the price, including yourself, by the way. So the matter today is really preventing any possibility of escalation and misunderstanding in space. So of course it goes hand in hand with all this. So that's very key. For me, these are the three elements that anybody is looking at. Okay, so now in this context, you see the new, what we call the new space is being coded already. So new space, these are all these guys, you know, acting in space for now almost 20 years, coming from outside of the space community, mostly from the tech domain. Okay? So to me, it's a meeting of new technological processes, modes of industrialization and commercial exploitation that have been never experienced before in space. But it's also the use of method, technologies, or equipment that have been invented outside of space. The way SpaceX is running its capability is very different from the way the traditional industry was running its own capabilities. You know, this test and try and fail, and test and try and fail, etc., has nothing to do with the traditional way for the industry to deal with space. So that's very new. It means that the industry culture, the logistics chain, everything is changing. So we have also to be very aware of this. But it must be reminded it's also a very US-centered phenomenon. This is where the money is. And this is where this, for many reasons that would be too long here to quote, but this is where it has been invented. China is trying to mimic, in a sense, and that's its own capabilities to create a new space industry. Europe is looking at it. We have startups, we have all that. We need to find out about how to make sure that these developments and governmental policies go hand in hand and are in a win-win kind of relationship rather than a zero-sum game stuff. And also, and last but not least, new space. This is the manifestation of the organized junction of the space sector and the information sector. You cannot less and less distinguish the space effort from the activity in the IT domain. Whether it's for collecting data, whether it's for processing and disseminating data. And this is really the backbone, in fact, of space programs today. Yes, very quickly I put this just to show you the specific case of the US. Here you see this, the blue is 2015 and the red is 2024. And this is the number of launches on the left side, and on the right side this is the number of satellites launched. And clearly you see two countries, especially one, having the dominance here. China is second, and Europe is recovering from it's a situation where it was running out of launchers. Well, we got new launchers, and it's still recovering from this. Just to give you a figure, last year the US launched in space 2,250 tons. China launched 392 tons, and Europe launched 43 tons. So it's to give you a sense of how it's evolving and getting a bit centrifuged in a sense in terms of that. So it's important, these technical things, because it, of course, has impact on political discussions. When you want to manage in a common manner this kind of environment, you need to get agree on what it is. And when you launch 2,250 tons on the one hand and 43 on the other, you don't speak about the same problem. So it has to be realized. Okay, so SpaceX, I will go very quick here, but you find a lot of graphics like this explaining how much things are distributed today. You have, and you know that, a proliferation of new firms delivering space data. It's the case in particular in the Earth observing domain. And you have now Planet, for example, the US firm, has a shoe-size satellites, something like 150 shoe-size satellites, you know, just delivering images like this. And it's just big like this, and it is a quick realization. Okay. Here I just want to mention that, yeah, 1 minute, okay. Here you have just the reminder that space is mostly financed by public budgets. Now sometimes, you know, some people say we're saying the privatization of space. You should be very, very cautious about that. In fact, there's a redefinition of relationship between governments and the private sector. Is more than that. Okay, I go very quick, and this is my last slide. So we're back in the ranking in Europe. Yes, certainly. We have been, this has caught by surprise in Europe, I guess. I would quote just a few examples. We have, for example, a project of space connectivity constellation called Iris Square, and it will be very, very technologically advanced, but mostly for governmental use, but might be assisting another constellation that's more public, more private owned one way, for example. So Europe is thinking about these connectivity issues. We have a great number of startups emerging in Europe, throughout Europe, in different domains, and it will also add supplemental capabilities to governmental programs. We have revamped the space policy access, and it's combining today public and private programs that will, in fact, reinforce the strategic domain, which is space launch. And in France, for example, you have had the establishment of the French Space Command in 2019 with the space defense strategy. There's a budget increase right now on the run. Germany has boosted its military budget very recently, and we see initial step of Franco-German and with some other countries, Franco-German cooperation in very, very sensitive domain. So this slide is just for you and to mention what Jérôme has mentioned quickly. There's a space summit in France organized in Paris next 9 and 10 September. All this issue will be discussed. That will be very, very at the center of this. Okay, we need those three components, but I could go back to this later on, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. Now we'll go to the second presentation that will focus on TASA.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank. First of all, thank DSET for having me here, and very pleased to share some ideas regarding TASA, what we are going to do. And actually, I would say that the director's presentation just gives a space 101. This presentation also gives you the backgrounds and the context I'm going to talk about. So, in the interest of time, I will try to make my presentation short and compact. So, internet protocol. So, just a quick disclaimer that if you hear something I'm talking about that weird or strange or questionable or arguable, this is bad. And if you think you hear something that is interesting and insightful or instrumental, of course you know who to cite. So, looking back, I just give you a holistic view regarding where we were from. Actually, on this timeline, I tell you about our space journey. We founded it in 1991, and originally in then of NSPO, National Space Program Office, and we were supervised by the NSDC, National Science and Technology Council, and under the same happening, NSPO transitioned to National Space Organization, and in 2005, and I would say that 2023 is a tipping point for us because with the backgrounds of the effective enforcement of our Space Development Act, as well as the Act for the establishment of Taiwan Space Agency in 2022 and in 2023, respectively. So it means that now it's just not simply the change of the name from NSPO to TASA. Actually, it means that we move up in the government hierarchy, and now we are an independent legal entity. I mean, we are not a administrative corporation. So we can refer to NSTC directly, and we have our own budget. And as I mentioned, we are a legal entity, so we can sign the contract, ROI, or MOC, MOU, etc. And of course, we can sue and be sued at the same time. So actually, this timeline also tells you that actually for the past 3 decades, we have accomplished eight space programs. in general, it's satellite missions. They are focused 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and the Triton. And the last one was the first focused 8 series. Satellite was launched in last November. And put differently, we already put 18 satellites in orbit, and now 9 of which are still in operation, providing the remote sensing, space weather, weather prediction, and satellite imagery missions. So that's what we have achieved past. So just give you an idea about our facility, and we are headquarters in Hsinchu, and you know that that's the hub for the global semiconductor and electronic design and manufacturing. Actually, as mentioned, that we have heard in Hsinchu that this headquarters accompanied the so-called satellite operation center. It is for the after we launch the satellite, we have to do the maintenance and operations of our satellite. That's the SOCC functions. And we also assembly and testing and deliver our satellite. We have the so-called satellite assembly INT facility. And also, actually, in the middle of this year, we will open our first startup incubator center, or nature is an accelerator. We call it Iceberg, and you can through the media you will know more about that. Aside from our headquarters, we also have branches and facilities in Taipei, in Pingtung, and in Tainan, and each branches have its own functions. For instance, in Taipei, actually we have a CubeSat AIT facility, and in Pingtung, last year, last March, actually we just select our initial launch site. It means that in the future we will launch our orbital launcher in Pingtung. And in China, we have a facility, an AIT facility for the rocket testing R&D. So collectively, across the agency, we hire more than 650 highly skilled and passionate full-time employees. So aside from the heritage and the history of TASA, actually we have to know the environment and the situation we live in. So actually, I would say that going back to the topic of today's event, actually for the geopolitical dynamics, I would say that the TASA takes a proactive approach to secure and to sharpen our role in the space economy and the space environment. And actually, just as this slide shows you that actually we actively participated in different think tank or platform to our argument and articulate our role in geopolitical dynamics. And also, actually, aside from actively participate in different forum or think tank events, we also heavily invest our own space capability in sensing, in communication, and optical launcher capability. So we are now sometime in the middle of the so-called third national long-term space technology development program. It started from 2019 and will end in 2031. And actually, this program reflects the vision of TASA, encompassing strengthen national security. So it implies that our role in geopolitical dynamics. And the second vision is developing space economy by adopting space-based application and to supply sufficient human capital industry, especially for the second industry. So, in a word, to realize the vision I just mentioned, so we have to put different puzzle pieces of the remote sensing, communication, space exploration, meteorological analysis, etc., to put them all together. This is the way we formulate and frame the architecture of our space endeavor for the coming years, especially in the new space era. So this slide just shows you about our international cooperation. Actually, this map vividly and visually plots the partnership in space partnership, especially for the capacity building, for the science or technology domain. So I will not dive into them one by one, but I would like to mention more regarding our cooperation between TASA and the KNS. KNS is the space agency in France, and actually our journey started in October 2023. We signed the MOC. So in that MOC, there are three major areas we are going to pursue and working on together. One is the space science, and the second is about orbital and the space transportation system. When it comes to space transportation, a system it means rocket, and the third one is about space economy. So based on that moment, we in December 2024, the occasion of the so-called tasking actually just give me a moment to have a promotional announcement that this year, from November 8 to 11 in Tainan, we have our third version of TASKI. TASKI representing the Taiwan International Assembly of Space Science, Technology, and Industry. It's a Space Week, Taiwan. Every year we will have that event. So on the second version in 2024, we signed the implementation arrangement with KNS. This implementation arrangement tells you that how we transform the vision into concrete project with KNS. Actually, just give you some flavor regarding the operation that the KNS they will develop and place the radiation monitoring instrument on our satellite through ride sharing, using that it will provoke detect radiation or some heavy ions or particles, energy particles in the space. So that's the concrete project we are working on together. And also early this last year, because you may know that between France and Taiwan, we have the so-called Science and Technology Convention. So actually last September, we also have a delegation pay a visit to Toulouse. You know that Toulouse is one of the major hub in space in France. So we also have a quite a fruitful discussion and try to shape some potential cooperation. So I would say that France and Taiwan, I mean KNS and TASA cooperation is developing and unfolding stories. And after my talk, I would like to share more about that cooperation. So that's all what I want to tell you about. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer. And after I have the Q&A session,
Thank you for this presentation. So we'll one.
Thank you everyone for coming here, and thank you for giving me a chance to present my research. So I think everyone think about Taiwan S is for semiconductors. It's not for satellites, right? And I think that space is not far from us, and especially this time, like SpaceX is IPO, and also everyone talks about AI data center in space. But actually, what I'm going to talk about is communication with satellites. It's close to us and you. You can imagine that you can watch YouTube tomorrow, right? And you can use Instagram tomorrow, right? That will kill my life. So I want to talk about this topic. It's not space, outer space. It's close to our daily life. Okay, so why we need a satellite communication backup for Taiwan? Because everyone knows that communication with satellites rely on undersea cable 99%. If China do some quarantine, blockade, the satellite, our communication would just cut off. And second one is right now we still have no Starlink service in Taiwan. there are a lot of like dispute and also discussion about that. I'm not going to go about that because still like the fact is that we don't have Starlink. And so my research focused on two questions. One is the supply demand issue. So how many satellite communication we have in Taiwan right now? And also how much government presume or assume that we need in a contingency or crisis. And second one is the government strategy about our B5G from TASA and also our international cooperation. So what is our strategy and framework? That is the two questions I need to solve it. And right now, just space 101. So right now we talk about space, two categories. One is the remote sensing satellite, and one is the communication satellite. So my focus is on communication satellite. So for Starlink, you see that they are in operational. It's like 10,000 of the operational satellite. And OneWeb, we have mentioned, is just 600. So it's a lot like 60 times gap between OneWeb and Starlink. And that is a partnership OneWeb and Kuiper have in Taiwan. So the Chunghwa Telecom have signed a cooperation with OneWeb. So right now we can use OneWeb service 24 hours in Taiwan. Right now it's open to commercial service. And second one is our new partnership with Kuiper. But as everyone knows, last week I think Blue Origin have some incidents about their rockets. So right now we are not sure about they are going to delay the plan about satellite or anything else. But right now we have the two main partnership with these two companies. And so this is the supply side. I think everyone is curious about how much we have right now, right? So the LEO is from the Earth is like 500 to 2,000 kilograms. That is the LEO satellite range. But right now we have OneWeb and we have Amazon Kuiper still in discussion, and also we have AST Space Mobile. So that is the Taiwan communication, Taiwan 大哥大. Yes, the Taiwan Mobile. They have signed AST MOU being signed, so they are enabled for direct to cell. What is direct to cell? It's use your phone and to connect to the satellite. That is a new development. And LEO satellite, everyone knows that we have a OneWeb service in Taiwan. But how many gigawatt we have right now? 1.2 gigawatt. And that is from Chunghwa Telecom. And the MEO satellite, we have the SES. It's a Luxembourg born company. So we have entered a commercial service last year. And also we have the micro GEO. So micro GEO is special because that is the first one, Astronics. We cooperate with them. It's the only one sovereign satellite for Taiwan. So that's Chunghwa Telecom really want a satellite for Taiwan, not only for domestic development and also cooperation with international companies to have own satellite control powered by Taiwan. So estimate is 5G, 8G. And also the geo satellite, we cooperate with Singapore companies. That is the ST2, which is the military relies on this satellite. And the challenge for TASA is for Taiwan Starlink. I think TASA make a lot of work, the B5G, a lot of project. But from the director, they mentioned that we need 150 LEO satellites for just basic communication for government in crisis. And also Chunghwa Telecom mentioned that right now what we have, they own is just 2.523 MPS. So give everyone an overview. The 2.5 and 3 MPS, just you watch like YouTube for one day and that's over. So it's really short. And also right now, our international cooperations with Japan, I need to emphasize this because TASA and JAXA have signed an MOU last year. And that is the most on-the-table cooperation with Japan because Japan is always sensitive with cooperation with Taiwan. But this space cooperation is more dual use. So we see that there's a lot of progress. So what is Space One launch? Is because we still in Taiwan, we lack the rockets capability. So we ran the Space One launch, but this launch failed. Yeah, but that is still cooperation. And this is the B2B, like supply chain cooperation. So that is supply for Taiwan and Japan's cooperation. And this is US and Taiwan cooperation. So this act just this year, from February and from Senate and also Hill, they have this TASA and NASA cooperation. So actually we have the biggest one China policy. So TASA can enter NASA with the Taiwan name. So that's why right now we want to unravel this bottleneck. So more cooperation can be moved forward. And also we are in the Artemis cooperation. For this year, our chairman have going to the event right now. So this is still the big challenge. As I mentioned, satellite just a backup system, but we still need that. But how fast and how much we still discovering. And also we have a deployment gap. Right now we still rely on just one web service. And also rely on one web service is also a risk, right? And right now we still don't know their agreement right in inside. If China just image if China coerces one web say, hey, if you provide service to Taiwan, I will cut your business and I will shut down or business in China, or I will make some pressure to the UK and French government. If that happens, OneWeb cut Taiwan service, we have no satellite service in Taiwan. So that agreement is still classified, or we don't know. But actually, we don't have the Taiwan's sovereign satellite right now. So this is my 5 recommendations. First one is for government. We need to have the crisis simulation. It's just a war game to simulate that how much we need. Maybe they presume wrong for their basic assumptions. And how about the interagency problem? TASA and MODA have their own domain about satellite. So how they can talk to each other in a crisis situation. And also we need to have more multi-orbit, LEO, MEO, and GEO, and also multi-provider. But actually Starlink's discussion is still right now progressing. And also interoperable ground station. So if we have a lot of providers, how this A, B, C, D, this kind of satellite can talk with each other. So it's about like interagency, interoperability issues, and also the domestic gateway. So as I mentioned, like OneWeb we have, but they don't have any ground station in Taiwan. Right now they have ground station in Asia, it's Thailand, Japan, and Guam, not in Taiwan. So why now the gateway is so important? Because if let's presume that if China coerces Thailand and Japan say, don't turn the service to Taiwan. And Japan's government and also Thailand government is still in the dilemma. Should we provide service or should we just turn off the gateway station in Taiwan? So we don't have that service. So we still need a ground station in Taiwan. And then last but not least, we need more investment and more policy commitment for TASA. Give them more budget to develop our F5G and leverage our big 5. Renbao, Honghai, Gongda. They have the OEM system. And actually, can everyone guess that how many percent of Taiwan supply chain in SpaceX right now? Everyone guess? Just how many companies in right now the SpaceX supply chain? 50%. Half of them. So right now Taiwan is inside the SpaceX supply chain. So we need to leverage our threats to going more about like we can develop our own Starlink and put more investment for the voters can vote for your legislative actors to promote on that. I think that would be really helpful for just our citizens to do our own efforts on our supply chain, on our space domain. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So now we'll go to the questions part. So I invite you to come here. So my first question will focus on TASA. So you talked in your presentation about the cooperation between CNES and TASA. So could you give us more details on what are the complementarities of the institution?
Okay, thank you for your question regarding the specific cooperation between DSET and TASA. Actually, I would say that the first one is, as I mentioned, that before we started IA, that yes, they will develop and base their radiation monitoring instrument. Our Formaset 9A it should be launched in 2029. Yes, I always say that cooperation is very important. Actually, for the radiation probing monitoring is to address the questions and the issues regarding the space weather, because space weather is a critical issue. It usually caused by the solar flare or some or some particles, high energy particles that emit from the sun, and it will cause the downgrade or the version of the Asian or PNT services, and also it will increase the drag upper atmosphere. It means that it will affect the orbiting of the satellite. So it's very important to get more data and information or some actionable intelligence for satellite operation for satellite operators. So that's one very specific solution. And the other, it is still under discussion that, but at this point in time, I'm afraid that I can give much information about that. But it's related to how to utilize Taiwan's semiconductor ability and advanced semiconductor manufacturing capability for a certain purpose. So that's the second project we are working on with US. So I would say there are two very specific operations between us.
Thank you. My second question will from Xavier. So you were talking about the concept with three components at your last slide. Explain that.
Concept, sorry, I think.
The three components.
The three components.
I think it was that you had three circles.
Oh yes, the three component. Yeah, sorry, because I didn't have everything. Get the last graphical.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what we see if you, as an analyst of what is space policy is today, it has three components. You must have a very efficient space sector. That's the first thing. What I mean by efficient, that you must be able to do very low cost, high performance satellite platforms and payloads and all that on an industrial basis. That's what we see for these objects in space, very low cost. And you must be able also to have launch systems that can be reused and that can be really cost effective. This is what within the US you can see that appearing in China and all that. And in France and in Europe, we're working on this for the next generation of launches. But it's not enough. It's not enough. It used to be enough 20, 30 years ago. That and you have the government and that was fine. Today, it's not exactly the same thing. You need a second industrial pillar, I would say, which is the pillar that will put money in the first one, the space sector, that because it has benefits in investing in the space sector of its own business. And this is what we call the tech sector. You see that in the US, space is just merely an element of the global network. That's what they want. They want to push space down to the earth, in a sense, in their own networks. So this is very important, and it brings a lot of money. It's creating new dynamics, etc. But it's not enough. You also have to still have a very strong public sector investing in space just to start the pump, I would say, for this business. And you say that in the US, you have a lot of money. They invest a lot in this partnership between the space and the IT sector for military purpose. It's the order of magnitude. It's several billions dollars. You see that in China, in a sense. You have this big tech actors, so benefiting from space. You have projects in space of several constellations of 10 or 12,000 satellites. And you have a government with big ideas and big money that can invest that. In Europe, we have to also build that. So we are building that. It's not something easy. We have a very efficient space sector. We need to have this very dynamic, we said downstream kind of industry. And we also to align this, the European Union investment. So this is the way it works today. Imagine that was just illustrated.
Thank you. So as we are talking about the public investments, and regarding the private sector, the new space, we often hear about the American or the European new space actors, but I'm wondering, there are new space actors in Taiwan. What is the situation about that?
So Taiwan, right now, the situation is that Taiwan's chips is really powerful, right? So right now, chips are really popular in the anti-radiation chips. So that's why that is the focus for Taiwan's right now. A lot of design, IC design companies doing that, and also AI computing. So I know MediaTek is doing a 3 nanometers chips for AI computing. So that edge computing part still shouldn't be neglected in the space domain. And the third part is right now Taiwan's ground station and reservers. That is our strength. So everyone relies on Taiwan's component and also the hardware side. You know, you have a reserver, you have the ground station that rely on Taiwan supply chain. Like I would say Renbao and also that communication module and also Honghai. They are inside the B5G corporation. So the public and private cooperation is really important for Taiwan. We are not like US. Like we don't have Starlink, we don't have space that kind of space lab. Big company focus their technology long term for doing that. Because for Taiwan's OEM, they still do iPhones, there's still a lot of business inside of it. But right now they see the new market in the space domain. So they can leverage their expertise for the established in the commercial electronic and iPhones or any kind of the laptop, they can put into the space domain right now. So I think that's a leverage gap right now, but that is really the transformation cost is really low for Taiwan to do that. Yes.
So regarding Taiwan's on the landscape of this joint company in Taiwan, just give you some flavor that actually based on some rough estimation. But actually, currently, if I'm not wrong, that there are roughly about 330 companies, including startups, as well as traditional incumbent or non-traditional space companies in that area, in Taiwan. And the market value, if I'm not wrong, that in 2024 is roughly about 9.2 billion US dollar. But I would say that, as Cathy mentioned, that more than 90% of the contribution from the ground segment. So that's the landscape about Taiwan space industry. And to my knowledge, here are roughly startup, roughly 10 or so. Yeah. Just to name a few, like Future or Tensor, etc. And by the way, as I mentioned that I talk that in the middle of this year, next month, that we will open our accelerator called iSpark. Actually, that's the platform. We want to nurture and shape and grow for Taiwan companies. So that's the one of our space industry.
You can go through a list. Right now, Taiwan Popular is like SpaceX relevant stock. You can go 10 of them. I think it's PCB is for Huatong, and also like just we mentioned 创未来, and also 升达科 is for 天线. So you can just type for all the SpaceX relevant companies, and you give the 10 list. And the stock is rising these days because SpaceX IPO. So you can go through that supply chain, buy the stock. You know, the money tells the big reward. So everyone interested in, go to their website. And also Leiyang. I think Leiyang is also a startup in Taiwan. They're really popular in Taiwan. Before the stock, just pretty right now, but SpaceX helped them to go to the stock. Yeah.
So I'll ask a last question before we open the Q&A. So my question will be on Europe. You talked a bit quickly about the European ecosystem, but could you give us more details on the strength of the European system?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it would be a long presentation, but yeah, in Europe there's a strong tradition about investing in space. You know, we have this European Space Agency, which is an integral organization, a very strong space technology and space science. But we have also one more, and for something like a little less than 20 years, a larger involvement of the European Union as such, as a space actor. There's a European space program. You know about this, what we call the flagship programs. Copernicus, it was just mentioned on the slide. It's the leading, in fact, program worldwide for monitoring the Earth and the environment. In the next months, in the next years, a new generation of satellite will appear, and this is completely full, open, and free access for scientists worldwide, etc. But it's very strong in terms of global effectiveness and for science and all that. But also the Galileo program, which is, as you know, that some call it the European GPS. Galileo is very important for Europe. Also in terms of autonomy, by the way, this kind of program is not about positioning yourself, it's about synchronizing networks and all these things. It's a timing program, by the way, mostly. That's very important. So that's why the European Union made the choice of having Galileo. And we'll have this IRIS Square program that's being devised to make sure that Europe get access to autonomous and secure communication for governmental use. The point being that this kind of program must be able to be open to be plugged to other programs and reinforce and get more capabilities from existing programs. OneWeb, for example, by the way, Eutelsat, which is a leading company for OneWeb, is also a leading company for the IRIS Square Consortium. It's not by chance, it's really the point to discriminate between these two programs, but also to make sure that it can reinforce themselves. So there's a lot of activities, and we just shortly had that even in the domain of human exploration, the European Space Agency had made has taken a new decision last year about launching a program for a cargo that could service space stations in orbit. And this kind of cargo program might even be transformed if the circumstances are, I would say, all aligned into a crewed program with astronauts. And this is a real political decision in Europe at this stage. This is something boiling really at the European level today. That's certainly be an issue at the Space Summit and the next Space Summit. Okay, we have as Europeans to realize how much important it is, and if there must be a public debate on that, and it's also measure the effect on the industry and also on Europe as a partner in big corporations such as ours. So all that are, of course, supported by a large technological R&D development programs. And for sure, with Taiwan, I agree fully that there's a lot of room for cooperation in many, many domains. What you mentioned was really relationship between NES and TASA, for example.
Okay, so now it's time for the Q&A. So I'll take the first question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful sharing. I'm Andy. I'm the president of the youth organization here working on space talent incubation, and policy is part of it. So very, very excited for it. Sharing. My question will be on the STM or the wider on space governance. You mentioned that it's a face of regulatory war. I absolutely agree with it. But in terms of discussion like SSA, SDA, STM, it really happens in a platform that is, I would say, dominated by you or very, very attached to you, and which it is a challenging field for players like Taiwan. What's your advice to it, especially with STM becoming a rising topic that really solve it? I'll say your turn.
Well, I mean, for sure. So you mentioned the SSA, STM, and SSA, and for supporting STM. So STM is space traffic management. It's what kind of collective rules you can have to prevent collisions and to make sure that the satellite doesn't hurt debris and all these kind of things. And for that, we need SSA, which is space surveillance awareness, which is in fact which are capabilities to be able to give the possibility to monitor space. And this is clearly what we need today. You know that at the European Union level, we have what we call the EUSST, European Union Space Surveillance and Tracking. It's a consortium of something like 40 to 50 countries, I don't know exactly that number. It's working quite well. It's improving because the capabilities are constantly renewed. It's also working, of course, in cooperation with the US. And the US for long had the monopoly, I would say, on this. It's changing, but it's not, again, it's a win-win situation here. Given the number of objects that be multiplied in space, you need every capability you can have to make sure that you have a very precise monitoring. For sure, Taiwan, in many, many respects, could, in my view, part of this, by the way, having itself possibly capabilities in this hemisphere to complete and to supplement existing systems. So I think this is exactly, thank you for the question, because this domain is precisely the domain where cooperation is natural, in my view. Always you have this difficulty between the military, civilians. But more and more, if you look at the US, the military have delegated to the civilian Department of Commerce, this capability. The military will always have specific needs, but they can address that while delegating a lot of stuff to the civilian. So it's promising. It's not easy. It has to go hand in hand with a governance discussion. It's not easy. That's at the UN Commerce level, but not only. It will be, in my view, it would be good if already if the major spacefaring countries could get agreed on some sort of transparency mechanism. I don't know if it answers your question.
So along with regarding STM as well as space situation or actually, as the writer mentioned that there is I would say that it's an initiative or version for the USST. Yeah, that represent space surveillance and tracking. Actually, just last year, I guess TASA already joined, and we can access the services. Just for simplicity, they will provide more information regarding to avoiding potential satellite collision, and that way that kind of intelligence will help us to maneuver our satellite something happen adversary way. So we already are part of the system, and I would also say that actually in the private sector there are several peers providing the SSA as well as SBA solution and services, and we have quite a frequent dialogue with those players to see maybe when time mature, they can some kind of solution. So I would say that the UST is quite important for us. Just if you have very specific example. As I mentioned in my slide, that latest satellite Formoset 8A launched in late November last year. Actually, after its launch, we try to test this information. So we got some information about the location of our satellite. It's very fast to show that check and to have the vital sign of satellite. So that's very specific.
I want to add on that. I think your question is like how to make Taiwan's voice more larger in the space governance. So I think I really appreciate the association's work because I follow your Instagram every day, and it's put the space awareness in Taiwan's public. And I think that Taiwan's have really we are really a contributor to the supply chain in the space stuff, but we don't have any voice in the governance part. And I think that what I think is that how can we leverage the supply chain threats to make us empowered at the governance side? What I think is right now the chips, the edge computing, and if you rely on Taiwan's hardware, how can we leverage that hardware threat inside to say that we have cooperations in OneWeb and we have cooperation with SpaceX? The supply chain cooperation can turn to the voice and to become part of the Taiwan's justification to let us to have a seat to say because supply chain is still important for national security. So why just big countries sit on the seat and everyone discuss space domain awareness? Because supply chain cooperation is still part of that security. I think I'm thinking about how can we leverage the supply chain importance of Taiwan to have a seat in the UN's related activities because of the political sensitivity. That is my recommendation.
So I still have another question here.
Thank you, experts, for the insightful sessions. I'm Pia, and I'm assistant professor in Yuanzhou University. And my domain is actually innovation and technology management. So my question comes to when you talk about logistics and manufacturing. With that also comes, products, components, infrastructure. And with that, we also have this soft race of patenting. Who owns the foundational intellectual property. And in space, right now, also again, US is of course at the top. China is aggressively getting into. So, and then with EU, European Union, we see that they are very good at regularizations, coming up with acts. For example, now with AI regularization and having responsible AI. So my question, just to summarize this question, is that how Taiwan finds its space in this whole IP section of space geopolitics, and how maybe Europe can help, or how Taiwan and Europe come together in this whole innovation landscape of space geopolitics. So, hope my question is.
So allow me to rephrase the question. It's about IP,
Yes.
right? Intellectual property.
Intellectual property.
Yeah, actually, it's a traditional topic. I would say every sector, including space. As I mentioned that we have signed the IA as specific vision. Actually, we currently like vision definitely some IP issues we will discuss. For instance, regarding the data sharing, so the data, utilize the data, etc. Something related to IP. First, the IP issue, I'm in Taiwan, space domain. Actually, allow me to give some example that actually, for instance, after we transformed from SPO to TASA, and as I mentioned that we go beyond as a R&D entity, and one of our mandate is to promote space industry in Taiwan. So how to utilize the model and public partnership. Actually, we have several projects private sector Taiwan, and IP will be an issue. Yeah, first. And for instance, as mentioned that for the sovereign vision space, we have several B5G program, and I would say that it's not for the commercial purpose, it's only experimental. But for the first, as I mentioned, it's a compact, small constellation, pricing six satellite, and the way we deploy this 6 satellite is that the first one will be a international operation. Of course, there are some issues regarding IP. The second one will be the 100% homegrown indigenous satellite, like TASA. And for the remaining 4, as he mentioned, that the remaining 4 satellite will go through the public and private partnership. Then we will always to top-notch Taiwanese electronic companies. Again, IP issue, how we share the R&D know-how, and etc. So we have our own internal rule of game and protocols to address IP issues. And so that's my answer to your question.
I'll take another question.
Thanks for those. I read about they have microgeo and also geo country. But when I look at the related purpose, microgeo one astronomers can BTS. And for those LEOs flying around, so we out of them, but probably not shooting at Taiwan. So from a cost performance, so it seems like couple more micro geo still makes more sense in terms of so I'm wondering that why are we focusing on video? Is that for some more purpose on personalization, or I'm missing something?
Well, I think that for communication signals, they can be placed in Geo, Neo, and Geo. Right? So that for Geo, it's just a stationary satellite that is like the same conclusion. So in general, the Geo itself is for relay purpose, not to directly send the signals. So they have different role for first for the iris square initiative you my understanding is that they are going to hold 190 satellites and about 272 will be LEO and 18 will be MEO. So I have to say a GEO, LEO and MEO they have their pros and cons. So that's why in this area now people talking about multi-orbital architecture, how to leverage the advantage of LEO, as well as GEO. So that's the trend. And also, if you remember on my slide, Taiwan, of course, we don't have our own sovereign communication satellite constellation, but we try to leverage the existing operators, LEO, as well as GEO. For instance, GEO, as you mentioned, that the Chongqing Telecom, they are going to have their GEO space. And for MEO, we have the SES and LEO. We now access the service from the DSET web as well as very soon, maybe sometime this year or next year, we are going to have the Amazon LEO. So we try to incorporate different orbital long altitude to leverage their to integrate their capacity to ensure the communication resilience. So that's my answer to you.
So for LEO, GEO, MEO, it's just like onion shape, right? We need to have different layer of onion. So that's why my presentation is we have multi-survivor and multi-like orbit. Because that is two questions, this latency and also the coverage part. Latency for the GEO one is 250 微秒 and 250 微秒, so it's half the seconds. It's not going to influence our daily life. You watch YouTube for 1 second. But if for the missiles, that was definitely a big issue. So it's all come from the latency and the coverage. And also LEO is more cheap to shoot up, shoot down. So that's why LEO is become a craze right now. Because it's more cost effective and low cost. So Starlink, their strength is that their rockets can be recycled every time. So they shoot all the LEO on the space, and also Starlink's usage in Ukraine about providing more like bandwidth for the USV and UUV and also UAV for the drones. That's why everyone focuses on LEO right now because Starlink's goes out application in Ukraine. But also you mentioned that don't forget the importance of GEO and MEO. But they are more expensive compared to LEO. But I think we need to have a balanced perspective. All layer is important. But which Taiwan should prioritize? Which is more urgent for Taiwan to prioritize? The more cheap one or the more expensive one? And so I think that is just a choice by government and also the business sectors.
Just one additional word. Geosatellites were mainly used for TV broadcasts, mostly. If you look at how TV is accessed nowadays, and the people they use this, don't use dishes anymore, and they use the internet. And as it was said, the latency then is, it's why the LEO is more connectivity constellation than telecommunication. It's mostly used for the internet. And then there's a rush towards speed. And basically, what somebody like Bezos or Musk want to achieve, is the fiber speed in space, and even quicker than the fiber on the Earth. That's really the ground. This is the quest, and mostly they want to put as many satellites as possible that it will be interconnected by optical links. And this is already happening. So that virtually you're close to your data. You're never further than, let's say, 400 kilometers from your data at a light speed. And that's very important for networks and all that. So all these tech people, they came with these ideas, these new ideas for uses of space systems, and it in fact brought about this wave of the LEO systems replacing, and in fact you're right, it's not replacing, these are other uses. And indeed more and more, and you're right for Iris, well that's true, it's a combination of different functionalities.
So as everybody has mentioned, that space is really a sensitive area. So not just NASA or JAXA, the other space agency that TASA has some hesitation before a cooperation, but we have sensed some change. Not sure if because of the Ukraine war or something. And what do you see about this change of the government's attitude to cooperate with Taiwan?
You mean in terms of cooperation, what would be the change?
So what is the attitude change of the government, European or international attitude?
Towards in the space cooperation? I feel like there's a history, and it's been demonstrated by your visibility. There's a history of cooperation that is very strong. I think NAS in particular has been very active. My view that discussed that earlier, I think one of the certainly most effective domains in terms of political cooperation is science, and cooperation between scientists. And that space is a particularly adapted domain, it seems to me. And one of the, I got your question very, very well, but this is what I see. I don't have any detail about what would be the change. You're mentioning the change of perspective?
There's a different attitude from the government. I think so. Why cooperate to common interest, common threat? So the common interest is that Taiwan plays an important role in supply chain of space, right? And so if we go to edge computing, Taiwan's chips is irreplaceable. That's Taiwan's unique value. And the common threat is China's and Russia's cooperations right now. I think from Europeans, the biggest threat for them and challenge for them is Russia. But if China is providing some intelligence and also talent sharing for them, that is another challenge for them. So right now, I think it's more of the convergence of interest and also challenge. And also, space is a dual-use technology. Everything goes to dual use, we can cooperate. It's not only just for military, it's also civilian. So I think that is my personal view is that about the dual use nature of our space and also our common interest in challenge.
Okay. Actually, as you know that I'm responsible. Let me narrow down to the cooperation of agency to agency. I myself responsible for the international cooperation. So I would say that it's quite a challenge. Here's the statehood of Taiwan award, but as in the Cathy's slide, she mentioned about the MOC signing between TASA and JASA in Japan. I'm part of the process. Actually, it took us about 2 years to make it happen. And the signing ceremony happened one day. I remember the last day of last March. We have a one-day trip. We flew to Tokyo and flew back to Taiwan one day in order to sign the MOC. Because it took us 2 years. Actually, you know that physical year happening in Japan is from April 1st every year. So actually, at that time, we heard that the head of the JASA probably will step down after his term. So we try to make it happen. The signing of the MOC happened before he stepped down. President is currently Yamakawa-san. So actually, we flew to Tokyo in the last day of March and to make sure that we can secure everything. So that's that's the story behind it. And also you may know that now JASA is supervised by MEXT in Japan. And actually, but when we discuss with JASA to sign the see actually we should have the green light from Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Japan. So actually, it's not simply a technical issue; it's also a different issues. But after 2 years efforts, something really happened. So that's the story behind the MOC signing with JASA. And again, whenever you discuss or couple research, text types, you need to get their trust and text types, especially in space. It's a sensitive, as Cathy mentioned, it's a sensitive area when it comes to dual use. It will be an issue. And actually, I would say that in the dialogue with JASA, not everything is smooth. So it's quite challenging. And that's one special. Well, talking about the agency again, agency coordination when it comes to NASA. As you know that actually, you may heard. Has also mentioned about the TASA Act, right? Taiwan American Space Assistance Act. Yeah, it is the very purpose is that the act is to make sure that TASA can operate with TASA and follow up directly, because in the past, actually, whenever we have to cooperate with TASA, it's quite challenging. So, but if that act passed, that will facilitate the process. And I would say that from the just give you another very specific example. You know the Artemis Accord. Till now, there are almost 60 countries.
65.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, actually, about 2 or 3 years ago, we approached NASA to see if we could be one of the signatory country. But I would say that till now, we can one of the signatory countries. But from the very beginning of this year, you know that the new NASA administrator is a man just assuming his role. Things sort of changed, not only because of the TASA Act, but also actually we just got a message from NASA directly that though TASA cannot be signing entity of the Artemis Accord, but now they also actively invite us to join some lunar exploration project, and that's why I can also tell you that actually after the new strategic exam soon as well, one of the focus of NASA is to lunar is about lunar exploration to have their lunar base in 30, and they just yes, in Q1 of this year they just released the so-called technology shortfalls. Yeah. So there are 32 areas that that in the future NASA will develop for the lunar base. So actually, we within TASA, we also set up a task force to do some research regarding the 32 areas, figure out which part we can participate in, and how Taiwanese companies in the private sector have the opportunity to join their efforts. So things are changing now. But still quite challenging, especially when it comes to visa. It's quite challenging. It's very some concerns about the geopolitics. Yeah. But one by one, for each country, for instance, UK or US, we have a good relation. So it's like this. So that's the again give you some example about agency to agency cooperation in Taiwan.
To complete, TASA in this case is an intergovernmental agency, which is a change to get to others.
We will still have time for a last question.
Very quick question because I did it quickly. I just got to come back on the cooperation. The recent TASA, I think, the announcement or comment made by TASA regarding regional cooperation on the Leo cooperation. So do you think TASA, but also the other participants, that a regional or cooperation on the Leo constellation would be a must for the countries, because developing Leo constellation, Leo satellite itself is probably cheap. When we talk about 11,000 satellites that need to be launched, operate, then it brings the overall cost very, very important. Is it sustainable by the countries? We can see R2 is moving to Europe, but minimum 12 countries on R2, probably more. So is it for the rest of mainly in Asia? So building this constellation will go through cooperation, regional cooperation. That's it.
First, I don't want to answer because my colleagues, but you can have 11,000 satellites, you can have also 400, depending on what you do with them. So I think you can start small and then increase or whatever. But I don't want to.
So regarding the regional view, again, allow me to narrow down to when it comes to Leo. It could be a reverse sensing or vision or TS as well, but allow me to narrow down to vision itself. Actually, I would say that you may heard or some news from the media that in my boss, you, TASA, on the occasion of the Space Symposium. Space Symposium is a leading conference and expo in the US that will be held every year in Colorado Springs, yeah, the defense sector. This year again, did you again was invited as a keynote speaker forum, and in that forum, he also mentioned that his idea is that when it comes to geo communication constellation, it means heavy capital investment, heavy operational expenditure, right? So actually, it's very challenging for each country to have its own, 24 hours coverage, sovereign satellite provider communication services. So did you suggest that maybe your country they could have a certain kind of operation? For instance, maybe country A, country B, country C, they can have their own small constellation, but those constellation would shake hands, to provide more resilience of services, but it's just a idea. It depends on those countries in Asia. They are going to have their own plan for their constellation. So for instance, in Taiwan, as I mentioned, we only have 6 experience for commercial constellation. And my understanding is that in Asia, they are going to have similar scale constellations. And Japan, you know that they have the so-called space strategy fund. One of the area they are looking at is to build the LEO constellation, because previously Japan they don't have so-called LEO constellation. They have the a Geo constellation. So my understanding, for instance, the MEC Japan, they are going to deploy 104 LEO satellite, and of course, but still in conceptual level. We have completed them before. So it depends on countries in Asia. They have their own sovereign constellation, and we have to facilitate some kind of cross-border and country-to-country dialogue to actually, the handshake of different constellation. And also, I can share you that actually just this year, we just start a feasibility study about constellation solution shape. It's not only a technical issue, because some legal issues and policy issues should be addressed. But we are now, to figure out the possibility and the feasibility of the so-called Asian constellation. I see different initiatives in different countries.
Okay, so I think we'll conclude the discussions here. Thank you for your presentations and for the exchanges. I believe it was very interesting conversation to have a great overview of the space, geopolitics, ecosystem, actors, and issues. So we'll close the debate here, but do not hesitate to continue discussing with the speakers around bubble tea and around the buffet right here. Thank you for coming.